Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Hello and welcome to the Encounter program. We are here today. My name is Reverend Rachel Helgeson and I am hosting two friends. This is Reverend Robert Dean and Betty Welch. They're from a Federated church in Maine, and I'm so excited to get to talk to them today because they're celebrating a big anniversary. Do y'all want to tell me a little bit about that? What anniversary you're celebrating?
We are celebrating 200 years.
200 years. Mm-hmm.
It's exciting, little town of Maine, New York. When we started, we weren't even a town yet. We were officially started in the town of Union.
Oh, you were?
Because Maine did not exist. Yeah. We predate the little hamlet of Maine, so it's pretty exciting.
See, I did not know that. I know we talked a little bit about that before, but I didn't know that was Maine came around this church.
Effectively, so, yes.
Yeah.
Between the originally 4 churches in town,
okay.
Now 3. We are a Federated church after a tragedy in the 1920s, took the Methodist church building, but we Methodists, because I'm technically United Methodist, were invited to come spend time with the Congregationalists, and they got along so well they became a family.
So tell me a little bit about that, being United Methodist and being Congregationalist. How does that work, having both those?
Well, you know, I grew up in the church, and I never knew whether they were Methodist or Congregationalist. We were just all a church.
Mm-hmm.
There was no label to anybody.
That's
at
great.
That time.
Yeah. So do you have different things you have to do, though, to keep both statuses as Congregationalist and being Methodist? Is there...
Well, I know I had to receive what's called dual standing in the United Church of Christ when I became minister at Maine Federated. So right now I'm technically a clergy of 2 denominations, which is a very strange thing, especially in the Methodist Church when they say you're not, with the exception of Federated churches, you're not supposed to do that. But that was something that happened. So we have to go through 2 sets of denominational reports every year. We have to have 2 different annual meetings, but really day to day, it's pretty much like a family. They coming in, I couldn't tell who was who. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, I could point out a Methodist when they would quote John Wesley or something, but you know, it's that rarely happens.
So you grew up as a Methodist, though, right? And
yeah.
Your family is Methodist. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Being Methodist?
Well, how that worked with you being in the church and what that meant for you.
Well, I just don't understand what you...
Well, you aren't Congregationalist, right? So how do you told me very clearly that you were a Methodist. So how are you a Methodist?
I never knew. But I never knew who was Methodist and who was Congregational.
Sure, but I'm asking about you, though, you personally. Is there, you being a Methodist, why do you identify as being a Methodist?
I guess that's the way I was brought up.
Okay.
I guess I was from a Methodist family. My uncle was a Methodist minister, and so I just all knew all Methodists.
Right. So the church though started, you said this is a 200th anniversary, right, is it the building or can you explain that?
It's not the building. Well, this Saturday, which is the day, it's this weekend, at 11 o'clock we are gathering right outside a dog kennel by the river, just on 26. To celebrate 13 individuals, 4 men, 9 women, who came together and decided that they would be a church on a Thursday, and they had their everything in order by Tuesday. This was a fast-moving group of people. So October 19th, 1819 was the first time they met. And by Thursday, they were already putting out pamphlets of what they believed, and grew to about 30 within a year, I guess. They did some pretty amazing outreach for a place that wasn't even a town yet.
That's amazing.
It is. So this is their third church building, I believe. Most of the old ones are gone. One of them has become a house, attached to a house.
Oh, okay. Wow. So somebody else is living in that place.
In that place. And they moved the church down the road. Literally, they picked up the current one and moved it, rolled it on logs, and they couldn't be bothered to turn it around. So if you look very closely, everything that's supposed to be in the front of the church building is in the back, and everything in the back's in the front because they installed it backwards.
They installed the church backwards?
Yes.
So wait, back up. So they had the church in a different spot,
yes.
And they put it on logs.
Yeah, and they rolled it down
the street. Rolled it down the street.
And then when they put it in, the original front of the church is now the back end of the church, and the original back end is now the front. So it looks very natural, but I'm sure the original architect is very confused.
Shaking their head. Well, that definitely pulls the first shall be last and the last shall be first, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I always wondered if everybody sat in the back when the old church, they moved to the front. That's always my question.
Right? Like everybody wants to sit in the back pew. So are they now in the front pew because that's their pew?
I don't know.
Do you have any stories about the church that you'd like to share?
The church has been changed around too. We used to have a different entrance, but years ago they changed it and put a balcony up there where they have the organ up there now.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. But we have added on to the church as years went by. We have a nice fellowship hall, and we have a basement with lots of Sunday school rooms, but we're not filling them right now. So
it's a common problem. Yeah.
So if you're just joining us, I'm speaking with the Federated Church of Maine. They're from Maine, New York, and this is Reverend Rob, and this is Betty, and they're celebrating their 200th anniversary of the congregation. It's a federated congregation, so that means that they're both United Methodist and they're Congregationalist. And so I just heard a little bit about how they rolled the church down to where the physical building is down the street in Maine. So if you are driving through, you'll see now you'll know that the back is the front and the front is the back, and that's the way it is.
That's the way it is.
I actually drove down there. I was telling you this. I was on my way to go to Newark to go take my kids to the pumpkin patch, and I would never have guessed that was the way it was. I just thought, oh, this is sort of the older style of church, that this is the way it is. But I also came from the Midwest where the back door is where you did come in, so maybe that's, I don't know.
Well, they do now, yeah.
So who knows, maybe that's what's going on. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're going to be doing for your celebration? And that'll be today because it's this Sunday, right? So
it is. So if this is Sunday, then yesterday we have our little reenactment of sorts of the covenant signing down by the river. Kind of glad they moved the church because it floods every year. So I don't know why they built it there, but maybe it was different back then. Weather patterns change. But then we would have had yesterday a concert at 7 o'clock for the community, which is going to have some sacred music, some secular music. A lot of them were involved in the bicentennial celebration.
Oh, great.
And so they're bringing out some of their favorite patriotic songs they did for that. They're having special organ music. And then Sunday itself, this is surprisingly hard. All of them, the songs are written before the congregation was founded. Would you be surprised how hard it is to find music that hasn't been altered since 1819?
Wow.
But I found 4 hymns, and that's all we needed.
So what are these hymns? I would like to know what these hymns meant. It's okay if you can't remember. That
I know the
like
doxology, fortunately, was one of them. I was like, yes. The doxology predates it. There was one Charles Wesley hymn, because he was, 1700s.
Well, as a
And then-
Presbyterian, we've taken a lot of Charles Wesley's hymns and put them in our hymnal too. So he's, you know, I don't know if Charles Wesley would feel okay with
He's
that.
everywhere.
He's everywhere. He's a prolific hymn writer.
He was. But then I was trying to find all these songs, and like even Amazing Grace said the songs was changed since 1819. So it's like I can't even use Amazing Grace. I'm like, oh, come on. But we're having a special service where it's as close as I get to high church.
Okay.
Like I was joking that I was going to get incense out. My assistant was not amused. But then we're having what we're calling our little feast of celebration, which is going to be somewhat potluck. They're doing some catered, just so that they can have a good time and not worry about cooking. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
And what time is the service? And
the service is at 9:30,
Okay.
and then, provided that I get everything done on time, the meal will be about 10:30.
10:30-ish.
Ish.
11.
Well, when you're trying to squeeze in communion, all these things, you know, sometimes the clock gets away from you. There will not be a long sermon this Sunday. It will be a meditation. But it's going to be exciting. And then throughout the year, they're planning on doing various things. They're putting a cookbook with their favorite recipes together. They're
that's wonderful.
making journals for the church members with some pictures of the historical aspects of the church, which will be lovely.
Didn't I hear you say that you found that somebody in your congregation found a document recently about the tenets of the church? Was that?
Yes. So they met on. It was it was a Thursday or a Tuesday. I didn't look it up recently, but within 3 days, they went from being together. It must have been Tuesday to Thursday. I think so. They went from not having a church to deciding to have a church, and then they wrote out 23 articles of faith in 3 days.
Wow.
Which that's impressive. I've spent more time than that on a seminary paper before.
Me too.
I was like, really? So yeah, and hopefully, if I can get them back soon, hopefully we're going to take 1 or 2 of those and put them in our newsletter every month and say, you know, these are things we believed, and this was the culture that bore them, where they came from. So it's going to be really interesting.
That's great.
For the historian person who likes history in me, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So have you seen any changes in the church over your time being a member at Maine Federated? You haven't seen any changes in the church, or has it been the same the whole time?
Changes, yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of changes have you seen?
Well, the changes is the people as they come and go.
Yeah.
And I'm still here.
Okay.
So, of course, at one time we had 2 services.
Okay.
And now we're back to 1.
Well, it's nice to be together, right? Like you said.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We were a big family.
Yeah.
And, lot of changes.
Any other changes other than the services that you remember?
Well, I don't know. We don't have the dinners and things like that we used to have. And
But it sounds like
I remember as I was young, when I was probably Grace's age, because there was a lot of people going there. But my mother was active too, and they had dinners. They put on dinners for the public, and they let me help when I was just a kid. And
yeah.
Of course, then I followed through when I was married. And then we had dinners and everything, but we don't have that now.
So have you been lived in Maine your whole life?
I started out in Binghamton, but we moved to Maine at an early age, so.
Okay.
I went to the 4-room school.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's an experience too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and of course the church, the inside of the church has been changed a bit when they changed and put the ups for the organ and everything. We used to have in the back of the church, a bench that went around and the 2 doors that came in.
Oh.
And then there was this place. And like the men whose wives sang in the choir would sit back there mostly. And lots of times if you had a baby that was fussing or something, you sit back there so you could get out the door easy. But we had one man that his wife was sang in the choir, and he'd fall asleep every Sunday, and he'd snore. And of course, that was one thing us kids, we always got a big kick out of having him snore and his wife up front singing, and he's in the back snoring. So, yeah. The choir used to be up front, and then it was up in there.
Okay, up in the balcony then?
Yep. With the organ. But
so can you tell me a little bit about how you call pastors? Because I know you're a Methodist, and it goes back and forth, right? Between a Methodist pastor and a Congregationalist pastor?
Yes. So the UCC and the Methodist Church go back and forth.
Yeah, they alternate.
Yes. So I followed Stephen Sprite Johnson, who were before me, and I have no idea who will follow me. But when I came, it was a conversation at the bishop's office where they laid out, one, what is a federated church?
Right.
Two, a lot of the traditional roles of a Methodist pastor are not held by a Methodist pastor in this place. Because there's that Congregationalist side, there's no... the authority of God may rest on me, but the choices the church makes kind of are the priority of how things are run. So
for Congregationalists, they have the congregation kind of runs the decisions, right?
Which I think is healthy. In Methodist Church, theoretically, they should be involved as well. Mm-hmm. But by tradition, somehow pastors get a little extra authority for our decisions, mm-hmm. which was a transition for me, but a good one in that this is one of the first churches I've seen where it's really a partnership between the pastor and the church people. It can't be the pastor running everything or even the church people running everything, but it's a partnership, and it's lovely. And some days I wish all churches were federated, and then other days I think none of these churches would get anything done, depending on what's going on. Because, sometimes we work really well and fast together, and sometimes it's slower. So it's an exciting thing. I have never been through the UCC call process. My wife is actually a member of the UCC now.
Oh, okay.
And she is going before their committee on authorized ministry, so I will watch it happen. But I've never gone through it myself. But it's different. It's definitely different. I kind of enjoy the fact that I choose to go, but the bishop says, here's your...
This is where you're going.
This is probably where you're going unless you have a very good reason not to, which is, it's nice. I get to see more of the state than I expected.
That's great. So how big is the conference for the Methodist, and how big is it for the UCC? Like, where does that stretch out? That's your governing board over...
Those are the governing boards.
Okay.
The UCC is technically larger geographically. They include all of New York State.
Oh, wow.
So occasionally we have meetings that are downtown New York City, and those are interesting to go to. For someone who's served country churches, to suddenly be in New York City is a little shock.
It's kind of like that meme that they said, you think I'm from New York, and they have a picture of New York City, and then there's a picture of like the fall leaves going.
Yes. Absolutely. And the Methodists are a little smaller. We have two churches in Pennsylvania. They really wanted to be with us when we merged. We didn't merge. We created a new conference. Sorry, Bishop Webb. Actually, Bishop Matthews would be the one who would be upset with me. We created a new conference that includes everything but the Hudson Valley and New York City. So we basically go up from the capital over all the way to Chautauqua, up north to the border on the Seaway. We have two Great Lakes, and we're proud of them. It's exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that means you travel a lot to different meetings and different places then?
Yes. I spend a lot of time in my car in the springtime when I go to these meetings. But they are exciting. I'm not currently serving on any conference boards, so I don't have to do a ton of that traveling, which makes me kind of happy.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at some point I'll be tasked to go, and our center for both churches is in Syracuse, which is fortunate.
Oh, that's fortunate. That's
so it's only an hour away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had another congregation. They celebrated their 200th. Their Federated church was in Masonville, and they were So it's a little bit different, but similar concept. They're Presbyterian Church of USA and American Baptist. So they talked about that too, how what you were saying is that, some of them grew up Baptists, some of them grew up Presbyterian, just like some of y'all grew up Methodist and some of y'all grew up Congregationalist. But they also said there's other people who just come because it's church, and that's,
there's only one God, it's what road you take.
Right. So they said that too. They said that they just look at how can we be church together and how can we support each other. And for Masonville, it was a smaller town, and Maine's kind of a smaller place too, right? So does that help, do you think, the community that you all are working together in a way that to show them what that's about?
Some days.
That's fair enough. I mean,
well, we do a lot with the town. Up until recently, they just dedicated a new building for the town, but all their offices were across the street. And so if they had an event that was too large, they would come over and use the church. And we've done a lot to partner with the town as best we can. We're not the biggest church in town, but we are very centrally located, so we tend to, like when the Roman Catholic Church had their Oktoberfest a few weeks ago, we opened up our parking lot to them. If the Baptists ever need anything, we're right over the woody divide. I'd say this is probably the church I've seen that's most comfortable with ecumenical work.
That's wonderful.
They have the chow pantry. They dedicate a whole building to it.
Oh, they have a whole building for the chow pantry?
Yes. So they have a clothing closet, and every year I get the report on how many people they served, and tens of thousands for this little church. I think they served 60,000 meals last year to people through the chow pantry, and I was like, in the little town of Maine, 60,000 people, really?
Well, we used to have 4 stores and a millinery shop and a barber shop and a creamery, and we had everything. So everything there.
So there's
a tannery way back when, a tannery, and we just had there was anything going, we had it.
So it sounds like there's a need that you all have found and are helping through the chow pantry to be able to make sure people get meals. That is an amazing gift. So you are doing a huge thing for your community. That's wonderful.
We do our best. We also have a very active preschool called Wide Horizons, which meets 3 days a week. And, I think I passed my 150th kid to come through the doors of our church through that program. So the church members who come Sunday morning don't see as much of what I see as a staff person, of how incredibly important that church is to that community. When there's a need, they know they can turn to us and we'll help. And that's a wonderful thing, to have that reputation. Like every church, we're struggling with numbers, as they all are, but they still do their best and they serve that community well. And I'm really proud to be their pastor. 200 years is a good start.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have a bright future ahead of them, I hope and pray, because they're doing wonderful things.
I mean, Jesus started with 12 people, and look where that led.
Absolutely.
So.
Our church is quite a community building too, because we have the community band practices there, and we have a senior luncheon, and we have things going. We have a clothes closet and a chow pantry.
Yeah.
And it's, for as small as we are, we still are quite a community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Folks, we think of the community and all. So.
Well, and it's amazing the way the church has changed over the years. Last year I had the privilege of celebrating a 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh.
And literally they were married in my living room, and they told me this because it was back when you'd go to the pastor's house and the pastor would marry you, and they tried to be sneaky and their family found out. But for 50 years the secret was out, they were married, and so they had a big celebration. But just to think about how that church has been there for ages, and it's a wonderful thing. Some of the things that they used to do that we struggle with, they had a very busy fall festival with a car show up until this year. Just became a lot to handle, but they had 150 classic cars in
Oh
that
my goodness.
field. And they've done so many fun things over the years. They used to have a flu shot clinic, but that hasn't really, there's so many places to get a flu shot these days. It's
Yeah.
less of a need than it used to be. But they've done so many wonderful things.
So we're about coming up to time, and I just want to say I'm Reverend Rachel Helgeson, and I have had the wonderful opportunity to talk to some friends from the Maine Federated Church, which is both a Congregationalist church and United Methodist Church. And before I came, I had wondered about how they were going to do that, and they've talked a little bit about how they just come together to be able to serve the people that they are in the town of Maine. And let's not count out our rural churches, friends. They do a lot of amazing things. I just heard how they talked about, they have a whole chow pantry. They turned a whole building into a chow pantry and have fed so many people this year. I mean, that to me is just showing like what we're supposed to be doing out of faith. We take what we have, the gifts that we've been given, and we make it something bigger and better than we could ever imagine, because God is in the middle of it. And it sounds like God is certainly working in and through your congregation and has been for the last 200 years, and it just sounds like there's something else around the corner. I'm so glad I got to talk to Betty and to be able to talk to Reverend Rob, and I hope that you'll be able to visit with them. They're having their special service Sunday, October 20th, and it starts at 9:30 a.m. There's a thing that happened the day before on Saturday, the 19th, and I know that they would love some visitors just to celebrate this wonderful, momentous birthday, anniversary, and celebration of the life of their congregation. Thanks be to God to them, and thanks be to God for you, our listeners and our viewers, as we love to be able to tell the stories that are happening right here in our community of faith, right here in the Southern Tier. And we want you to be able to hear that there's something amazing and beautiful and exciting happening in small towns like Maine and in the Southern Tier, in all sorts of corners, that light is just shining through, and we want you to be able to hear about that as well. Thanks be to God for that. Thanks be to God for you, and I'm so glad you're able to talk to me a little bit about your congregation. Thanks for our encounter.
Okay.
Thank you.